Hey guys, today this beautiful young lady, this beautiful young lady, this beautiful young lady. I don't know why I can't say young. This beautiful young lady will be telling us about why body count doesn't matter and why we as men should not care.
I want to make it clear that I'm responding to this comment, not for you, sir, because at the end of the day, you are an anonymous private profile, and if I were to bet money on it, you're some random loser in his mom's basement who would liquidate his savings to smell my farts. So, to be clear, this is not for you, but to anyone who has.
Just to let you know, madame, it's not that we want to smell your farts, okay? We want your used panties and we want to sniff them, okay? It's like farts, just you open the can or whatever, the bottle, they're just gone on the air right away. We want to be able to like sniff those panties for like years. You know, come on. Seriously? Do you think we're that stupid? We're just gonna get a fart that's gonna float away? You're gonna sell us a can of Mount Fuji Air. They actually tried to sell me a can of Mount Fuji Air when I was in Japan. It was like one of the things you could buy was like can of Mount Fuji Air, and I was thinking like as soon as you open this can, it's gone. This is so stupid.
Read similar verbiage to this and even have believed it for 1 second or gave it any kind of credibility, I just want to say this. I, first of all, detest the overall concept of a high value man and a high value woman. The people who use that kind of language are people who are chronically online and who themselves are not high value men or high value women. No one who had anything going for them would ever use that kind of language. Not that I've seen, because you don't have anything to prove. These people have jobs. They're getting laid. They're not using this kind. It's not. First off,
I kind of agree with what she's saying. It's like most people don't talk about high valued man or high valued woman or any of this crap. Like this is just pretty much strictly a red pill, like online phenomenon thing. We don't. If you're out in the world, like no one's really talking about it unless they're sitting here watching red pill videos online. So I agree with her in that regard. But I would say that the concept of a high value, I'll speak of a high value man anyways, to me, isn't even like, it's not about like how many people you sleep with. It's more about your character and if you're able to provide back to society and make it better. Like people look up to you, you're mentoring other people, you're helping them succeed, that kind of thing. Like you're being useful to the people around you. And I know there's a lot of talk that you got to make a certain amount of money, and that is what plays into being a high value man. Sure, I mean, good to make money, but I think that aspect is less important because you could be some kind of, I don't know, professor and be a high value man. A professor is making, I don't know, 80, 100K, something like that, 120K. You know, they're not millionaire and they could very well be a high value man because of what they're giving back to society and like what they teach their students.
second off, the only reason why men care about body counts is because they themselves are not getting laid. Anyone who is getting laid does not give a fuck about body counts. Okay?
Are you serious right now? This is the only reason that you can think that somebody would care about body count is that they don't have sex. So then they're like, well, I'm not having sex, so I don't want you to have sex because then you're better than me and I might feel inferior because, oh my God, you've had 20 partners and I've had one and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm going to feel all weird about it. That's the only possible explanation that you can think of? Really? I mean, we could just throw out all the typical red pill things, which you probably already heard, and I don't really want to get into them. But the fact, you know, STDs, the more and the more partners you have, the more experiences you've had, the more things you've done, the more you're going to compare that with another person, and so somebody else might not satisfy you as much because they have a 6-incher and you've experienced a 9, so you're like, I don't know, this isn't enough or whatever, right? Like there's the typical red pill talking points. Don't need to get into that, okay? But I can just think of some very normal ones. One would be, might be from a religious background. There's a lot of people who are still religious, and generally in religions, right? Unless, I mean, there might be some exceptions, but generally in religions, you don't generally want to be like sleeping around with a bunch of people. That's not the purpose of what you're trying to do. So you could just think from a religious background. Two, the one that I would, how I kind of view it, and I will preface this by saying I was raised Catholic, I'm not Catholic anymore. Maybe this somewhat informs it, but it's more of a respect thing. If I know a girl has slept with tons of people, it feels like she doesn't necessarily respect herself as much. I would prefer that my woman had, let's say, 5 partners and had sex like every single day with those 5 people, right? Just nonstop. They just had sex 3-4 times a day. I don't know, whatever they're doing. Then she had sex with like 100 or like 200 different people. Because ultimately, it says a lot about sort of her mentality, right? Because to me, if you were actually serious about like meeting somebody and being in a relationship and that type of thing, you don't necessarily want to just sleep around with a bunch of people first off, right? You're like trying to find somebody. So if you're slept with like 200 people, it's like, what were you doing? You're just, well, I was just having fun. It's like, I look at it as a respect thing. I don't want to go out with my woman and then it's like every person on the street is like, oh yeah, I slept with her. Oh, I know what she's like naked. Like, I know what this. It just feels like it's disrespectful to, first of all, her, and then to me and to her parents. It's, you know what I mean? Like, to the people around her, it's disrespectful. And I kind of feel like if you wouldn't want to go to your parents and tell them about it and be like, hey, mom, dad, you know what? I've slept with 100 people now, and it was really good. And this one guy had like a big dog or whatever, and he did this thing, and I pegged him, and blah blah blah. This happened, and I got DP'd or whatever, like whatever it is. Like, if you don't want to tell these things to your parents because you feel like it's not appropriate or could be embarrassing, or somebody you respect, doesn't have to be your parents, somebody you really respect, it makes you feel a way, then that's a good sign that you shouldn't be like, well, I'm just gonna go out there and do it. Just like if you're doing cocaine like crazy or heroin, you're not gonna run around and like tell people, hey, I'm doing heroin, and like, oh, it's so awesome, blah blah blah, and you're gonna be like spreading it around to like people that care about you. They're gonna be like, can we have a talk? Like, why are you doing this?
You don't leave the house enough. You don't have enough options, which is why you're insecure that I don't ever go out and play chess, so I'm worried that I'm going to end up, some chess pro is going to give me a chance and they're going to see how big of a loser I am and that I'm not good at chess. And yeah, you're probably right. So stay in your lane. We all have our lanes. You have yours. And people who are what you deem high value men and high value women have their lane. You probably don't fall into it because you're using terms like high value men. Okay? In terms of the men that I have dated, sir, you will never find yourself in the same room as these people. Ever. You'll never find yourself in the same room as me. You'll never find yourself in the same room as them.
You just said at the beginning of this video that you don't actually know who this person is. It's like some private account or something. So you don't actually know who they are. But then you're saying, well, you'll never be in the same room. You're this, you're that. You're just labeling them basically as somebody you don't need to engage with because they're a Nazi or they're a little kid or they're a loser or whatever it happens to be. So you're just labeling them as the other, so you don't actually have to engage with their argument and actually have a decent, like, normal conversation.
We're in different lanes, we're in different rooms. Okay? Thirdly, no man that I've ever dated, and I only date high value men.
What is a high value man to you? You said you don't actually believe in it, and that's why I guess you're making fun of it. So I'm curious what that even means right now when you're saying it.
Because I can. Because that well has never run dry for me. Okay? The world isn't fair. It is the way it is. No man that I've ever dated has ever asked me or given a shit about a body count.
So is it that they've never asked? Or is it that you've just told them or you've mentioned it in some way and they just didn't have a reaction? Regardless, it almost doesn't even matter. I mean, realistically, I'm just thinking, like, if you're on a date and a girl tells you, she's like, hey, you know, I've slept with 100 or 200 guys, and she probably ain't going to say it like that. She's going to say it in, like, some roundabout way, likely. Like, you're not going to have some crazy reaction because you want to, like, blow up your date. You're just going to file that away in your brain, and you'll be like, oh, she's this type of person. She's not going into the wifey bucket. She's going into the, you know, I might have a good time, or once I'm done with this date, I'm cutting it. Like, it's not the serious, like, mother of my children bucket. There's a lot of guys who will sleep with the ugliest women because they're just like sacks. That's all. And then the women think like, oh, I can get this type of guy or whatever, and it's like, well, you can have sex with them, but will you be the wifey material? Maybe not. Probably good chance not. So I don't think what you're saying right now is like, I'm just thinking, like, if I was on a date and you told me you slept with 200 guys, I'm not gonna go crazy on you and be like, oh my god, 200? Are you a whore? Oh my god! Like, what? Why would it, like, I don't want that drama. I'm just gonna, like, be like, okay, I'm gonna move on. Like,
they don't care. They don't care. They don't care at all. They've never mentioned it in terms of me, in terms of other women. They don't care. Because they actually get laid. Because they're actually confident in their physical abilities. Any guy who cares about a body count is either 16 years old or he doesn't get much action.
I mean, again, just labeling people as the other. You're either like a teenager who has no experience and like super not confident and like couldn't actually perform, or, you know, you're like some virgin guy who's like nobody wants or something. Like, you're just labeling as the other, so you don't have to engage with the conversation. Again, I think it's very disingenuous what you're doing right now. You're not actually engaged in this at all. You don't know who this person is who's asking the question. He literally could be a teenager. Fine. Yeah, could be. Also could be somebody who's like 35, you know, like normal guy, whatever. Or it could be like a CEO of some company. You don't know. So, regardless, just because somebody doesn't want somebody with a high body count doesn't mean that they're worried about inexperience, how they are inexperienced compared to the woman's experience, or that they're not going to be able to meet expectations or something like that, or they don't have a big schlong like the other partners you might have had. That's like red pill talking points. There's other reasons. I think about the respect, and I think about like the religion thing. And I'm sure other people in this video can easily comment on this and will have their own opinions as to why they might not want that. It's not rocket science. I think there's a lot of other reasons. I hope that she reconsiders some of her thoughts here, and that she actually thinks about, like, why does she think that way? And maybe it's that she's living in this online world and that's what she's being pelted with, so that's all she sees. But I would say to everybody else, you know, whether or not she learned something out of this or not, we should not just label people one thing. We do too much of that in society right now. Maybe more so in the West than other places. For whatever reason, we become very intolerant to other people's views and beliefs and things. You should be able to talk with people in a good faith way and try to understand their sides. And don't just label them a certain thing and move on. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys again next time.